You know, when this movie came out, critics hated it, audience didn't get it. Pretty typical of any Zack Snyder film, it seems. But you know, I bet feminists would love the fuck out of this movie if it came out today. What to do, ladies and dudes? You know who I be. It's the one, it's the only Vogue Desperado.
Sitting here chilling with them is the gentleman bastard.
And I had this thought the other day. First off, who remembers Sucker Punch? Who remembers Zack Snyder's Sucker Punch? Honestly, if you ask many people, they either A, never seen it, B, probably didn't hear about it, or C, they hated it. And I'm in the D category, which is, I think it was actually a pretty good movie.
Straight up.
Admittedly, I remember the first time watching it and leaving feeling kind of odd because it was because of the ending.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it is a good movie. Quick synopsis for anyone that doesn't know or isn't familiar with the film. Sucker Punch is essentially about a group of girls trying to escape an insane asylum, and throughout the film, the main protagonist, Baby Doll, kind of uses her imagination to give a dramatized, glamorized version of their attempted escapes of said insane asylum. So, considering what's a masterpiece today, and considering the heat Zack Snyder gets for Batman v Superman, let alone any movie that man does, I thought to myself, would this movie fare better in today's era? You know, the more feminist, progressive era of film and storytellings where literally you can just be a chick on the mic and fart and say men suck and get 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I mean, because in all seriousness, even though this test is foolishness, Sucker Punch passes the Bechdel test, which they say is, a must to be a feminist film and to be good and equalitarian, if you will.
There you go.
It shows women as strong, even if it is technically imaginary. They are kicking ass and stuff. And again, she's dreaming it, but it's technically real.
It's happening.
The men are actually legitimately bad. You're not getting a man bad speech. You're actually seeing them bad. And you're like, yo, I want bad things to happen to these fucking dudes, right? And look, because she's imagining herself being in a whorehouse, it's sex worker positive.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? So
the door's open for you.
Yeah, so in a lot of ways, you would think it would fare better today.
I mean, you're not wrong. And when it comes down to this movie, like, it's great. It has a great plot, great story,
right,
all that stuff. And it's just, I don't get why there's so many reviews that don't want to reflect what it actually is.
Exactly.
But it's just that this movie is not bad like everybody has portrayed it so far.
Like, you're right. I think you're right. Like, I think the plot is very understated. A lot of people kind of I think they overcomplicated it, but it actually is a pretty legit, good, simple story.
It is. It's something easy to follow, especially when you put it into the aspect of just like, girl gets hurt, girl wants to change the hurt, and she goes about it
herself.
Exactly.
They like that shit.
That's what it is. So I feel
saves herself. Baby doll saves herself.
She didn't need no man. She don't need no man.
Hey, she really didn't. She was using these men.
So it's just like that way, story wise. Even though it's like, as a man, it doesn't make me sit here and be like, well, I want to watch this. Like, the story engages you. It brings you into like, wait, look at how she suffers. Look at how she changes her pain, and look at how she makes it to where she can be free.
Right.
Like, it's just that I feel because of that, it makes it towards a story that everybody would watch, not just the feminine types. They would just be more happy that they can get on this.
Right. And I think other things that are good about this film too, are like the look of it. Zack Snyder is, I would agree, say like most people would agree rather, is that he makes pretty films.
Yep.
The visual effects of, from the different worlds that he creates from her imagination to even the gritty, shittier world, the real world in the insane asylum or the house mansion where it's all rainy and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a very stunning movie in its kind of more gothic look and, fantasy look. Like, it really hits all spectrums of like, this kind of tickles my fancy here,
Exactly. It's
again, even the action scenes too, like, it's actually good. That's another thing Zack Snyder does well. Good fights. They're actually pretty cool.
It's not something where it's just, here goes a gunshot, here goes a big ass cannon. It's an actual fight.
When they were in the
back and
trenches.
forth.
When they were in the trenches, that was a sick
That was
fight
like, hang
scene.
on a second, is somebody got to lose? And then
what was
boom,
it?
boom,
Not
boom,
Rocket.
boom. Sweet Pea.
Sweet Pea, yeah, she was getting that shit. When she had the hood, she was like,
toot, toot, toot,
fell
blah,
down
blah,
with
blah.
yeah, that shit was pretty sick, you know. There's some good lines of dialogue. Like, there's a lot of good things to actually be liked here. But what would modern critics say? Now, maybe one day we might do like a full-on video essay for this movie, you know, kind of really defending its actual merit, because I don't think it's that bad of a movie. This is more just kind of a random rant idea, because the feminist types, you know, the woke types, if you will, whatever, I don't give a fuck, use whatever words you want. They tend to hate everything, but they really, really love their, you know, quote unquote feminist kind of movies and stuff. Yeah. I'll put up some screenshots of the ratings for She-Hulk and stuff. And for She-Hulk in particular, you will see that this shit is fucking blocked. You can't even fucking like go to. You gotta log in to legitly look at the ratings.
They're
here.
Protecting her, okay?
Yeah, Captain Marvel, it's shining and glowing, but not locked. It's kind of weird. And you know, Wonder Woman not locked, and some of them are glowing. But you know, I just kind of found it funny that this movie that's actually truly feminist, actually more empowering, like you can go to Rotten Tomatoes and as late as 2019, literally I think it's a chick, it says misogyny disguised as empowerment. That's how they describe this movie. And even up into 2020, people are not understanding the plot. They're thinking it has no substance, and you're just kind of like,
did you watch the movie?
Did you watch the movie? Like, now listen, I know Zack Snyder gets a lot of hate for reasons I honestly don't understand. Like, the man actually has good visions and likes what he does, and that's a lot more than you can say for half the people signed up for Marvel. I mean, half of them get fired anyway, so maybe they did like their job. But it's better than, like, you know, half the shit, like, that's actually getting produced and stuff like that. Like, I just kind of don't understand, like, the hatred there. But you gotta admit, man, I mean, Zack Snyder also was a writer and producer on the first Wonder Woman, which is by far, like, a million times better than Wonder Woman 84.
Oh, yeah.
And look, if you want to talk about someone that knows how to write female characters,
Zack's your boy.
Exactly, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, again, with this film, there's a lot to unpack. I mean, like, her dance can be metaphors for sexual exploitation or sexual freedom or sexual liberation, you know, using it as a weapon. Like, there's a lot of things that you can dissect from, like, more of a female feminist perspective that in a lot of ways you would think would get some more round of applause, some more credit, some more, you know, respect on these movie streets.
Or maybe they could have been throwing out a lot more type of references towards the movie if people actually embraced what it was and had, like, all these feminists, they'd be able to say, hey, look at what this goes on here, how this does here. Like, she does all of this and doesn't need. She came up with the plan on her own, doesn't need. Like, everything would have been she did, doesn't need. She does, doesn't need. So it's
like you really do see Baby Doll, like, you know, she was a big sister and, you know, she came in there with the blick trying to save her sister early in the movie. But you see that she's a very capable, like, hey, nigga, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to be free. Like, you see a very strong woman
she said, nothing's going to stop me.
Yeah, like, whereas, like, you know, what they define as a strong woman now is Captain Marvel because she's the strongest.
Because she has all the power. Like,
Wonder Woman because she's
power.
the strongest.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of weird because you're like, well, what happened to, like, you know, character arts and, like, you know, vulnerability and,
having,
you know,
actual determination and such.
Yeah.
Like, they're just the character who's been thrown in with a whole bunch of different power, and Mary Suis that just makes them unstoppably, like, perfect.
Right.
And
like,
then this one, it's like she's not, and the grittiness is what really makes it just, like, real. It's something that you can look at it and be like, wow, I could see her.
There's an actual
being
danger.
A person.
You know, there's an actual danger there, and, you know, like, if you think about it more deeply, the fact that she has to go and escape mentally to get through whatever the fuck she's doing, which, you know, it's a PG-13 movie. It could be very sexual, you know, in the real world, or it's just, you know, a coping mechanism. Either way, you know, that's kind of the fun of the movie. It doesn't have to be as dark and gritty as you want it to be, But in a lot of ways, it kind of is.
Yep.
Which I think I'd make the argument that if this movie was rated R, it might be a little bit better. Just kind of going a little bit deeper, you know?
Yeah, you would get all those dark little crevices that you missed.
Exactly.
You, get that,
That'd be kind of cool. But, you would think, like, again, it would get some respect from kind of, like, exploring that, but not in a way that's too deep or heavy, you know what I mean? Because it's a way to kind of easily grasp, but it's a way to, obviously I think have a lot of discussions because you can watch the movie and be like, well, what is she doing when she's dancing? It's enticing, it's entrancing. And then, like Sweet Pea's like all that gyrating and moaning and you're like, well, shit, nigga.
Exactly. It's like,
just get up on stage,
over here, Twerk Nation and
flicking,
shit like that.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's happening here? I want to watch. But like,
we get action scenes.
Yo,
I'm not
cool.
hating on that.
Like to me, again, it's like Rugrats. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love Rugrats, but I thought it was, kind of funny in a way, but it, again, in a more serious way, it's an interesting coping mechanism to deal with the grittiness of her situation. She's in an insane asylum about to get lobotomized for some crime she didn't even fucking do because, motherfuckers out here grimy.
Yep.
And, to watch a girl have to go through, a lot of things to try to, escape that fate. Hell, in a weird way, I think this would actually even be kind of a cooler TV show if you kind of broke it down and made the plot a little bit longer and the
drag some certain things out.
Like I think there's a way to make it better. Like I'm not gonna sit there and say this is a perfect movie, but there's a lot of things that get love and get praise and get hate that almost don't make sense. I mean, Let's be real. The prequels is probably, the Star Wars prequels are the best examples of motherfuckers were on one back in those days. Like, we grew up watching those fucking movies, and it was weird because in real time, nobody hated them.
Hell no.
It was probably until 5, 6, 7 years later where you're like, well, the fuck you talking about, man? That lightsaber action, the music, all of it was pretty awesome. You can love or hate Jar Jar Binks. Nobody gives a fuck,
He didn't make the movie.
He didn't make the movie, right? And same thing with the kid. It's, Anakin Skywalker, he's a terrible actor. Like, bro,
he was a child.
10. Like, So, like, people have the weirdest complaint. Oh, the politics. I'm like, well, yeah, it was a peaceful time.
Exactly.
And shit had to go down.
They were explaining parts of stories that you guys already know about.
You don't just become an empire out of nowhere.
No,
like, you got to take something
build
over.
That shit up.
Yeah, exactly. So prequels being the best example. I mean, there's like this video going out with Hayden Christensen kind of like tearing up at one of these Star Wars festivals because, that nigga was getting hate back in the day. All of them was getting hate, And I think Zack Snyder, at least for his body of work, is going to be kind of similar because people do know, a lot of people have respect for the Justice League 4-hour cut, but a lot of people will one day look back on some of his movies and be like, hey, maybe we were a little harsh because in a lot of ways, the reasonings that they say, like the negative reviews here, like, for Rotten Tomatoes, it's misogyny. How?
Exactly.
He passes the Bechdel test. He's literally, showing you strong, empowered women in a good light. And they're like, oh, well, they're sexually dressed. Nigga, most of y'all do that shit for $5.99 on the goddamn internet. So
shit, sometimes they do it for free and say, I'm cosplaying. Like, come on now.
I'm
so it's
saying.
Just like...
So they can go and dress up like these characters, but he makes a movie where they're dressing like that and getting paid the bigger bucks, and it's still misogyny.
It's misogynistic because that's what you want to see. You needed them in. No, I made a story. I made something else happen, and somebody came in with character design.
It's the weirdest shit, But I don't know what to say. I do think it's kind of funny, but because now, granted, it was 2019, 2020. I would make the argument being in 2023 or 22, because there is a review from 2021 where it's positive. So maybe in today's, because we do get progressively more woke, even though people's eyes are open, it's a weird way. I think people could actually be like, hey, you know what? This is actually more empowering and a better film for women or depicting women than what we once originally thought, or because 2019 is not that long ago.
Exactly.
But
every single movie that they had then was always just like the woman was putting everybody down type of thing instead of just going through some shits.
Right.
And
Well,
showing
I mean,
how
you know,
she can
that's
actually
like
define
2019.
through
That's
it.
you know, I don't fuck. Was it 2015 that the first Star Wars with Rey and shit?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like
15 or
I don't know
16,
if that
yep.
was the starting point of what I mean, because Disney and Marvel basically was the only thing that was in the only player in town at the time. So that was kind of the start of where you was starting to see a lot of these overly bearing Mary Sue dominant chick types, and maybe that's why they still hated that movie, because that was like a 2019 2020. That's like an 8 or 9 year later review, and you're like, all right, nigga, I don't know what's up in your ass. Now people didn't like it before for similar reasons, I would assume. Maybe not so much the sexism tip, but they're like, oh, this no substance, it's no this, it's blah blah blah, and you're like, whatever. But I do kind of think that, I mean, because, to each their own on how you feel about the story and stuff. I'm not going to, if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. But I do think it's kind of a lie to say, oh, there's no substance there. Like, what do you mean by substance?
Exactly. Like you got to build up a lot of stuff to make that story work, especially with the way that it starts.
It's also like it's a one-off story, and it's a quick story. Like, it's not a story that's meant to be like super long and super, like, I mean, you can make it kind of, because it's a timed story, when it's
5
a timed
days.
story, like, you don't have like, the time to be the most deep, but I do think it has substance. There's like a story there about this, legit victim of a girl trying to find freedom in those shitty ass situations.
There's a whole sense of urgency.
Like,
the whole movie.
like this movie is legitimately the patriarchy keeping you down. And I don't whatever.
they fight back. I know that. That's literally them fighting back the entire time. So y'all should really love this a lot more.
Like, yeah, you would think that crowd would love it a lot more. And maybe they should. Maybe these people really do. I don't know. Like, maybe they need to go rewatch it. Because there's a group of people that have never seen it. But I think maybe more modern audiences or newer audiences, that don't hate Zack Snyder, because I think some people just have a hate boner for the guy, and it is what it is.
They read the name and say, I'm never watching that.
Exactly, but I don't know. I do think it would fare better in today's time, whether last year or this year. I think if it came out, like, people had no prior convictions of it, people would be like, oh, this is a masterpiece. Especially if, like some of these other review, like, shows and shit can get, like, golden reviews. I think people would love this nowadays.
Yeah.
But let us know in the comments. You know what it is. We are the Jabberjaws. Do you think this movie would still suck? Did you always hate it? Did you like it? Did you think it got too much hate? Did you think it was actually good? What camp are you in? Do you think it would get some love in today's time? Do you think people would still hate it? Let us know in the comments. Pretty please. Oh, hopefully you stay with us this long. But if not, fuck you. So I was kidding. I was just kidding. Hopefully you did. Thank you. We'd really appreciate that. Vulgar Desperado.
Gentleman Bastard.
Catch you on the next one.
We out.
Peace.